Hello, this is Harry Paden, and welcome to another episode of the Paden Perspective. Today's episode is entitled, If They Keep Quiet, the Stones Will Cry Out. Those who are a little biblically read know that's a scripture taken from Luke, the 19th chapter, the 40th verse. Jesus and his disciples were coming, and the disciples were making loud noises, preaching and spreading the gospel. And the religious leaders at that time tried to admonish Jesus and said, wait a minute, why don't you tell these guys who are with you to stop making so much noise? Now again, remember, they're preaching the gospel, the good news that Jesus was preaching. And Jesus replied to them, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out. So that's why I chose that for the title of this episode of the Paden Perspective. Again, I'm Harry Paden. And today is designated as part of Black History Month. The whole month of February, it has been set aside as Black History Month. And everyone knows that, but there are some misconceptions, and hopefully I'll speak on a couple of them. But the actual idea for which has now developed into Black History Month was started by a person named Carter G. Woodson. And it was Carter G. Woodson used to write journals. He felt very strongly that at the time they were called Negroes. Negroes didn't know enough about their history. He was a historian. He knew a lot about Black history. And he started writing these weekly journals, and he found it very well received by the population of, again, then called Negroes. And as it was responded to well, he started to expand on it. And he began to write more and more journals, and people encouraged him. And celebrations took place. Please do your own history. I won't cover that whole segment. But Carter G. Woodson. Many years later, the idea took off. First it was Negro History Week. It expanded and expanded to where it is now called and celebrated as Black History Month. Here's what Mr. Woodson said. If a race has no history, it has no worthwhile tradition. It becomes a negligible, which means it means nothing. It becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world and stands in danger of being exterminated. That's Mr. Woodson. Very, very, his book, The Miseducation, lost my train of thought, but his book is an excellent book, excellent read, written many years ago, but many of his points were right on point. But the other thing I want to say about Black History Month, I've heard over and over people almost make a joke about it. Well, they chose Black History Month as the shortest month of the year because we know February only has 28 days, 29 every 4 years during leap year. So they say they chose it. It was not chosen by they. Mr. Woodson was the person. Carter G. Woodson was the person that wanted the celebration in February. The reason he wanted it in February because two people that he respected very much and he wanted to honor them was Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. Both are born or were born in February. So when you hear that they stuff, it's not correct. You're incorrect. They didn't choose it. Mr. Woodson chose February. And it has nothing to do with the length of the month because every day is Black History Day. Fact. Okay, now the other thing, moving right along, today, February 1st, is also a very important day. And February 1st is National Freedom Day. Did you know that? It's Black History Month. You have to, get more information. So hopefully this is something, if you didn't know, National Freedom Day. The National Freedom Day also has significance and relevance to the world, but particularly to people of color, especially Black people. National Freedom Day purpose is a holiday to promote good feelings, harmony, and equal opportunity among all citizens, and to remember that the United States is dedicated to the ideal of freedom. Major Richard Robert Wright Sr., who happens to have been Black, he was a former slave. He fought to have that day as a day of freedom for when all Americans could celebrate. When he got his freedom, he was a slave, remember. He went on to become a successful businessman and community leader in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He chose February 1st as National Freedom Day, listen now, because on that day in 1865, then, at the time, President Lincoln signed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Okay, so you say, what is the 13th Amendment? The 13th Amendment is the amendment that abolished slavery across the United States. There's more history behind that. That was put on paper on that day. But that amendment in and of itself did not end slavery. But that's part of Black history. Today is National Freedom Day. And the reason I entitled it The Rocks Will Cry Out, I'm one of the rocks that like to cry out. And I cry out because there's people out there at January 6th, that riotous act, treasonous act on our nation's capital, carried out by those actors, those rebellious people with their criminal action, beating up police, killing people, wanting to hang people, was done because those people believe it is their God-given right to be superior to people. Why? Because people like myself, Black people, we're less than they are. But I've never believed that, and the reason I've never believed that is because I know my history. I know the contributions of Black people, and that's to the United States, and not only the United States, but to the world. So it's important that we educate ourselves because they will not give you information about your history. As a matter of fact, I dare say they don't know much history because it doesn't benefit them because they think they're superior. So if they find out the truth, they will find out how unsuperior they are. People are equal. There's no equality based on race or inequality. Superiority, that's what it is. But that's what Black History Month is all about. And as you see, I'm here in my Black Panther Wakanda Forever shirt in a tribute to the late Mr. Chadwick Bosewick, who died recently but was the star of Black Panther. He played at first Prince, then King T'Challa, and did a great job. And we know we love that movie. And then also Michael B. Jordan played another great role, Killmonger. And before I go any further, let me say, when I was watching that movie, and when T'Challa and Killmonger came out, and they were fighting and doing the stuff, and they took off their shirts, the women and maybe some of the men, oh, ooh, they were like, whoa, they were liking what they see, and them brothers had been in the gym, you could see it. And that made me, I wasn't jealous. I was like, I want me some of those. So I started, I may not be Killmongering up, but I started getting back into the gym because health is important. So thank you, Killmonger. Thank you, T'Challa, for motivating me to get back in the gym. And I look pretty good. My abs and my chest and all look pretty good. I'm still working on it. But I'm proud to announce that I have a second book. And it's relevant, this second book, because it has so many facts that are relevant to black people and the world, especially with this month being Black History Month. The book is called Now You Tell Me, and that's all caps. Now You Tell Me. History/facts not taught in most schools. And another part of it, if you could see it, it has a fist that is breaking chains. And that's what it's about. The subtitle, Breaking Chains, Knowledge is Power. And this book, I'm proud to say, is 30 chapters of little known facts. And something that I've written articles. I used to be a columnist for quite a few newspapers, and throughout 30 years of writing for various newspapers and since high school, I've covered a lot of these stories. And it's things like, in this book, The Truth About Africa. Did you know The Truth About Africa? A great series where you can get a great deal of information about Africa. Is a 6-part series that is called Africa's Great Civilization. And that contains so much history of our continent, not country, continent of Africa. Dr. Gates, Dr. Gates, a great historian, has put that together, and it comes on PBS. It's available, I guess, other places, but if not, nothing else, look for it. February 1st, 2nd, 3rd, just look for it, Google it, put it in your on demand, whatever, search it. Great series, talks about Shaka Zulu, great warrior. It talks about the strong Ethiopians who were never colonized and why they were never colonized. Great. But Africa, I have The Truth About Africa. I don't have many of those details, but I have some great details about the wealth, about some of the things. Many doctors say that Hippocrates, which he was a Greek medicine person, they consider him the father of medicine. But history has informed me that Hippocrates, Socrates, and many of the other great Greek scholars, to take nothing from them, they went to Egypt and they studied under a great, he was almost like a medicine man. He was just great, had great knowledge and, knew what to do to cure things. Imhotep, Imhotep. They studied under him, and many of their first ideas came from him. So if the truth be told, Imhotep, look that up, should be considered the father of medicine. And as you know, Egypt, maybe you don't know, Egypt is located in Africa. Some Egyptians try not to kind of, the whole racial thing. But Egypt is located in Africa. Some of the other things this book has, it talks about black buying power. If we, black people, spend our money exclusively in our population and taking care of our businesses, we would be, I think it's either the 12th, the 12th, like in countries, we would be the 12th per capita. In other words, we would have so much wealth, we would be number 12 as far as countries if we spend our money in our community. But unfortunately, our money gets out of our community between zero and one time. We go right in, and then we go to the mall. We go right in the Gucci and Gabbana, or the other side. I don't even know how to pronounce it because I don't even buy that stuff. But it talks about our buying power and what we could do if we stop depending on others, stop going to the others to depend on them and make them great. Oh, that Gucci, oh, Gucci, yeah, Gucci getting rich and you still poor. Sorry, woosah. I also talk about the history of historically black colleges and universities. Great story, because blacks weren't given an opportunity to become educated. So the first colleges simply was to bring us up to a remedial level. Then they became teacher colleges so that we could teach ourselves and teach others. And they've always been underfunding. I talk about the funding and how remarkably even Trump helped in continuing to fund black colleges. He may have done a lot wrong, but that was one thing he did good. I talk about the truth about Native Americans. They said Native Americans were savages, that they scalped people, they were living like savages, they didn't have any kind of ruling systems. Not true. Not true. There were over 2,000 dialects. They had civilizations. They had their constitution, the Iroquois Constitution, is the basis of our Constitution. That's also covered in the book. Our great Constitution is based on the Native American, who they said were savages, Constitution. I give you the history of that, and it's actually recorded in the Library of Congress. It's recorded in under the legislator. They made a bill or whatever you would call it. It's all in this book. I talk about black cowboys. Also, if you have young men, with what's going on, George Floyd and some of the other incidences that have been taking place and have been taking place throughout our existence in this country, surviving police while black. I give you tips that I use, and I'm here. And I've had quite a few encounters with the police, and I've walked away. Not all of them have been the nicest guys. Some of them have been. But I've survived. And that's what's important, surviving the police while black. I talk about our companions, our brothers, the Hispanic heritage, another strong population that their places, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, they also were colonized by those Europeans. I give you some other facts. It has quite a few chapters on black history facts. It has 3 separate chapters on black history facts throughout the book. I also talk about Black Wall Street. And I'm not talking about the Wall Street in New York. I'm talking about the Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And people, a news people person said, I've never seen riots like this in my life, January 6th. Well, then you haven't studied Tulsa, Oklahoma, where these enraged rioters, white people, destroyed a prominent black town. They used helicopters and everything else and destroyed the whole town, burnt the whole town down because they were poor. The whites were poor. I said, well, how could these black, and they burnt it down. That's in the book. I have a chapter called Black on Black Crime. What's up with that? I give my opinion. And a lot of it has to do with self-esteem. It's a lot easier to kill somebody who you think is nothing. America has convinced you that's nothing than to kill a strong black man like you that's taking care of his or her family. So I give the subjects. This book, like my first book, is available at amazonbooks.com. You put in my name, Harry Paden, Paden, and it avails you to it. You can also get in touch with me. I'll leave my telephone number 973 580-2496, 973-580-2496. I will autograph the copies of the book. I have information on women's history, quite a bit. Again, it's 30 chapters. Here's the table of contents. But in addition to the 30 chapters on various little known facts, I have an extensive bibliography. Bibliography, for those who forgot it from school, it simply tells you about books. And I have 40 plus reference points where, aside from the information in my book, you can get some great information. Like I said, The Miseducation of the Negro by Carla G. Woodson, Black First, 4,000 groundbreaking, pioneering and historical events, books on the Black West. Yes, there were black cowboys. Lone Ranger didn't depict that, but there were. Reconstruction. Did you know that there were senators, black senators, congressmen, way back in the 1800s? If you didn't know that, you need to know that. There was a black governor back then, and the stories around those things. Women's rights. I gave you some interesting facts about Haiti, the first of the colonized places to have a revolution. That's why America and other colonizers hated, because once they got their freedom, others said, oh, Haiti's free, I can be free. They hate Haiti. They want Haiti to destroy itself, and that's part of the reason why Haiti is such a poor, economically poor country, because they have collectively got together and said, we ain't taking care of that place, we hate Haiti. And again, I just hope, again, don't buy it from me. I'm okay. God has blessed me. I'm not looking to be, best-selling, all that kind of stuff. Those are great accolades. But this book, every young person, forget us older, because we're older now. Every young person should have a copy of this book. Not because it's my book, because they need to know these facts. When those Capitol rioters get up in their face and say, boy, you ain't nothing, you laugh at them. Say, yeah, okay, thank you. And go right to their doctor office while they up at the Capitol rioting because they can't feed their families because they too busy out there following behind Trump, who's living in Mar-a-Lago and all them places. He don't care about them poor whites. He don't care about too many other people but him and his family. And I dare say he probably don't care that much about them. But, again, I'm so, so proud of this book. Again, I designed the cover. I'm getting a little bit fancy. The writing, the lettering is red. Then there's some that's black and green. Red, black, and green. Where did I get that from? Oh, you know that. Red, black, and green. The fist that's breaking chains. The book is called Now You Tell Me, History/Facts Not Taught in Most Schools. And the subtitle, Break the Chains, Knowledge is Power, by that great and handsome, muscular, buff guy, Harry Paden. I appreciate it. If you go out, again, don't buy it for yourself. Buy it for young people. Buy it for 3 young people. Buy it for somebody that's in jail. That's why it's called Now You Tell Me, because if some of those young men knew what's in this book, maybe they wouldn't have been inclined to be thugs and criminals. So the book is called Now You Tell Me That I Could Have Been Somebody. I could have been a contender. Fortunately, I got that message early. Some of that is in the book. I thank you for continuing to support me. So many of you. I've recently been informed that I'm being given the honor by the Essex County Board of Commissioners. I'm humbled by it. I like to do things. I like to, excel at things, and to be recognized by your peers is humbling. And I can't talk about it because then I'll start crying. But more details on that maybe in the future. But again, as much as I talk, it's hard to talk about myself in that light. But thank you again. God bless you. Continue to be strong. Learn something new every day, not just February for Black History Month. And I'm not just talking to people who are black. This is important information for everybody. We have to get ourselves together. If not, we'll soon be speaking Russian, Chinese, Iranian, or Korean. Take that to the bank. Bye.